Hello, Jamie from Inky and Scrappy, sharing with you today a platform pop-up with a Swish-N-Pop add-on and a free swivel. So I will start by folding all of my platform pop-up pieces. This one took me a very long time to do. So I did actually do a pop-out video of this one, so it actually shows in real time how I get the Swish-N-Pop mechanism into the inside of the platform pop-up. I hope it helps for those that were asking for a slowed down version. So it is in real time. I do my voiceover is not really a voiceover. It is actually live. So you will see a lot of hand gesturing because I talk a lot with my hands in real life all the time. And so that's what you get. So this one is very well, the whole thing is sped up to at least 4 times, I do believe. So I'm sorry if it's too fast. If there is interest in this free swivel piece being at a real-time pace, please let me know and I will do another one, and I will do it with some altered features that I realized would have worked a whole lot better for this one. I added some thin pattern paper here, and then for my Swish-N-Pop mechanism, I just make it flush with the bottom and the side, and then I will run that through the die cut machine. The pattern paper here was probably a text printer paper weight, and so I couldn't do my whole platform out of it, and so I found it was a lot easier to make the outside piece there with the to change that as opposed to adding it to my floor. So here is that pivot. No, it's not the pivot. It is the Swish-N-Pop mechanism. I am putting this one in the first hole. And I'm going to grab my little bear that I'm planning on making swish across my platform. And so I'm trying to figure out where I want him to stop and where I can put that foam tape. And if I'd have remembered that I was going to give him a little suitcase and realize that he's going to have to sit over a little bit further, I could have extended that foam tape a little bit further. But I didn't. So it is Big Mama foam tape. It is very thin. It is similar to, I think it's actually the same thickness as that scrapbook.com adhesive in their thin strips, if you want a thickness comparison. And so I was thinking I could add foam tape here as my stopper. Don't do this. It doesn't work. I end up taking it off in a little bit. And so I'm just taking some of my pre-cut foam tape here and then I did a thin strip on the bottom, and then I will fill in the rest of the foam here to keep those two pieces together. And that little bit of foam in there really does help that mechanism move freely. This one I felt moved better than my last one. I don't know why, but it probably had something to do with, it wasn't my first go. It was my second. It always seems to go better with the continued ones. So I'm putting together my front side of my my platform pop-up box. Oh, I can't talk today again. And then I'm just going to add my hills in right away here. I find that it's easier to add them as I go. So I had added my hills with the mono tape runner to a thicker piece of cardstock and ran them through to cut the hills out all at once to save time and so I didn't have to line them up because they were not going to be strong enough on their own. And then I will add the back hill here. So on the pivot pop-up, if you're going to add it to the middle of the box, if I would have put like grass or a hill for this one, you'd want that to be as, you know, so it's going to be that whole width of that middle piece all the way down to the bottom and all the way wide, or at least wide enough where your pivot points are so you don't get caught on it. I know I talked about that a little bit in my last one, and this one I just decided he was standing on the platform. I didn't want him in front of or behind a hill. I did make sure to cut a slit into my tab there to get my tab through. I wouldn't have had to go as high as I did, so that will be, you know, something. I do end up adding a little bit of a stop or stabilizer in there towards the end here. And I did leave that part in so you can see that. And then I will line this up. And then for my tabs, especially when I have an interactive piece, I like to add a little bit of glue. It seems to hold them together better. Otherwise, they tend to pop apart later on down the road. So there is the Swish-N-Pop in there. Again, there is a pop-up video that shows that in real time, and I hope that explains it better and makes it a little bit easier for you. I am using my favorite things, circle sliders. You could find a little button, I think it's Jesse James Buttons or Buttons Galore and More, has mini buttons that are a similar size. And just make sure you take a file and you file both sides that are going to have glue on them, and it helps them to adhere better. So I'm starting with putting that on a little circle. The circle here was the big circle from I'm trying to think which one I used. It was one of the bubbles from, I think it was the Bubble Scripts die set for my circle size. It was about the size of a penny. And so here I'm just putting my bear together. I am making a little Mr. Paddington. And this one I probably should have waited to add my background pieces until I figured out how I was making it do the swivel across, the free swivel across the back. And so it added more weight, which was fine because I wanted it to be a sturdy piece to fly across the sky here. But I probably could have hid some of my weights. So the suitcase is from the special delivery box add-on, and the hat is from the special delivery stamp set. And then it was a little too narrow for his ears, so I did end up cutting off or trimming his ears there. And then I just had die cut second pieces of everything. And then I'm trying to figure out how to add, because usually I'm working with a wider piece that I can punch a hole in. And this one was too thin. So if I do this style of, when I do this style of cardigan, I will actually not use the Lawn Fawn die on this one. I will take a bigger piece of acetate, thicker. A, it will add more stability. B, I will be able to punch a hole in it. And so then I don't have to figure out how to get my pivot to actually work on that piece. So this one I ended up gluing or taping that to the actual acetate piece instead of having the circle behind the acetate piece with the little circle with that acetate piece in the middle, you know, with a hole in it, so the circle piece would have gone in the middle and then it could pivot around that acetate piece. It just ended up causing me a lot more headaches than it probably would have had to. Hindsight is always 20/20, right? And I probably could have cut off, you know, more of this piece. I could have probably just used a bigger circle or a square that would have fit behind the bear. I just thought it was going to be easier to put the bear, just die cut another piece of bear and use that as my swivel piece on this one. And then I will end up adding some. I'm just trying to figure out if this is going to work. So it should work. I have my circles that are bigger than my swivel piece on each side. And then figuring out how I'm going to get that bear to swivel back and forth. And so I added this on like, I think twice, and I had to take it off and readjust because it wasn't quite where it needed to be when I had them on. So I realized that this piece is going to have to be popped up from the back of the other piece, and then it has to have enough room in the middle there to be free moving. And then I will add a piece, that penny-sized circle there, so that will add to the swivel piece. And then I had to let it dry for a while and see how it moves freely around that. And then I will add that to my box here. And I forgot to take into account that he has his suitcase, and his suitcase is going to take up a little bit. He can't go as far over as he would without it. So I'm just going to trim down that acetate piece here. And then I just end up removing some of that adhesive. I just push it up with my nail, and it worked just fine. And then I liked to add a little bit of extra glue because, you know, I don't want it to fall apart. You spend that much time making it work and figuring it out, you know, it's not cool if it falls apart. So I realize I need to add weight on here, and that's how you make it stay straight up and down when you're doing that swish and pop. That's what the free swivel does. So as long as you have it weighed just right, it will fly across the air straight, you know, without being like on its head by the time he makes it halfway across. I just removed the adhesive from his ears on this one so I could work on. I knew I had to weigh it down. I did not know how hard this part was going to end up being because I have so much weight all over the place on this one, because the umbrella is up in the air, and that I was hoping that the suitcase would help weigh down or, you know, counteract that umbrella weight. And it probably took me the longest after I'd figured out the swivel part was to actually figure out the weights on this one. So you will see me add weights here, take weights off, and reposition. I don't know a good way to figure out where your center of gravity is on a piece of paper that is going to swivel in here. To me, it's trial and error. Usually I can kind of figure out, like, this side's going to be heavier. This is leaning this way, so I need to add more weight on the other side, and just continue on in that respect. And so I was trying to also avoid that pivot piece. So he got heavy. He got very heavy. So I needed to stabilize that arm piece. I ended up taking 2 strips of acetate and some Tim Holtz Distress Glaze, or glossy accents, I guess it is, and glue them together. So I just tucked it into the platform pop-up a little bit along that acetate piece that was coming up. It doesn't seem to hinder that movement at all. So I do end up doing 2 extra pieces here, and that seemed to add plenty of stability there. And I'm just I found these clips at the Dollar Tree, I think. They just work good for an extra little hand. And so while I'm waiting for those to dry, I will finish decorating my platform box. So I took a contrasting red to go with his hat and his boots to tie in those with the rest of the card. And then for the bow, I take a bone folder and kind of round it. And then I do remember to add my foam adhesive this time to the back there, so it keeps that shape a little bit better. And then I will pop the middle on there flat, and then it kept coming off, so I did use a reverse tweezers to hold that while it dried a little bit, and then I'm just rounding that middle piece with my fingernails a little bit here, and then I'm going to add a very thin partial foam. I'll just cut a little piece from a foam square here, so it has a little bit of height there, but not a whole lot. And then I will add that onto the front there. And I like doing a contrasting bow and ribbon. It seems to stick out a little bit better. It doesn't get lost on the ribbon. And so I'm just trying to figure out how much of that pull tab I need. And I think I have my weight fairly good here. It's not perfect yet. And I realize I can't add any more pieces on the inside without either making it really thick or bulky. So I did end up adding another, I think I add another one to the back of his leg here. And then because I did not line that up perfectly, I had to trim off where the white was sticking out overly well. I did end up adding glue to my bottle. And he does fly fairly good. His suitcase gets stuck a time or two when you're moving him back, but overall he moves fairly well. And then to help with my stopping there, I should have backed this with a heavier cardstock, and then maybe it would have worked better on the one side, but it also has to fold. And so I wasn't thinking about that when I added them. And this one, I added it thinking it was going to work, and then my actual pull tab has to kind of pop up through there when it folds flat. So I will show you how I do that in a little bit. So I'm trying to figure out how much of that pull tab I need sticking out yet, because it's going to be different from when I have it in the place here. So I'm just trying to get that to go where I need it to go without, see how much sticks out there. So I know I have to keep it fairly long here. And then when I folded it up, I realized that that puddle that I put there was not going to work. So I end up cutting a slit through that, or taking my scissors, I think I used the scissors for that one. A sharp scissors or the other. I could have maybe, I don't think I could have, no, because it has to come up and through there, I think. So I'm just kind of putting a dot on my thing where it's going to end here and where it's going to end here. So I know how much has to stick out. When I did it in the second hole, not as much as the tab stuck out, and I'm thinking the second and the third position are probably going to be the best ones for this, but I will find out when I do my next one. I will try it on the third hole and see if it works. I'm just trying to finish decorating the rest of my box. I kept this one fairly simple. I guess if I would have done, I don't remember Paddington Bear much. My little sister loved Paddington Bear, but you know, she lived in Maryland and I lived in Minnesota, so I didn't get to, I didn't get into all the Paddington Bear stuff that she got into. We're also quite a few years apart, so I had to do some research to find a saying that went with this. And so when I was doing that, I was like, oh, I should have done the marmalade and the other stuff, but it's all good. So that's when I realized that that's going to have to go up and through there. And so I ended up cutting it and then just gluing that piece on. And so he doesn't stop where I wanted him to stop. He goes a little bit further, which is fine. And then I'm trying to figure out my pull tab piece here because I want to add in. And on my other one, I put that pull tab piece on with the arrow, and I was like, oh, the arrow doesn't really work. So I'm adding in another stabilizer in here because I realized that I didn't need to have that slit quite as high. It can stay down lower and it'll be fine. And so being that I just took double-sided tape to put on my pieces of pattern paper, I could just pull them back a little bit and put that in there and then add in my stabilizer. So I put this on backwards, and then I also popped in the little arrow piece for the back. And then I was trying to figure out what to add for a sentiment. I had, you know, the Den Sweet Den out, and I had the Lucky Duck out because I liked the luck one. And then I just ended up writing my own. I don't like my handwriting, so it is what it is. You never know your luck. So that was the sentiment I went with I looked up Paddington Bear's most common quotes, and so I liked that one. And it kind of makes the card a little bit more open-ended when I decide to give it away. I am just wiping off that embossing powder and then adding in that to the back panel there. And there it works. I will have a little video of it actually standing up and working. It works a lot better when it's up and down, not angled. And there he goes. And then back again. So he kind of gets stuck on his suitcase there, but it's fine. There he is, all done and finished. So thank you so much for watching and subscribing. I also have the top view there, and then I think I show you the back. So I did end up adding a little bit more weight to him. So thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day, and check out the pop-up video